Happy Purim. Okay, so in Jewish culture, we say that Mishanichnas Adar Malbim B'Simcha. When Adar comes in, Adar is the month that Purim is in, then our joy increases, or we increase our joy. And there's also this rule, mitzvah gdola tamid liot b'simcha. It's a great mitzvah. It's something we're commanded to do, an obligation to be happy, always, but specifically when we're serving God. And so there's this question of how can we be commanded to do something that we're not necessarily able to do, because we can't necessarily control our emotions and we can't necessarily make ourselves happy. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and someone said something, the podcaster said something that stuck with me. He said, there's a difference between control and responsibility. I can't necessarily control whether or not I get into a car crash if I'm driving, but it's still my responsibility to do my very best to make sure that I don't, to take, what's in my control I need to take care of, and what I can't control but I can influence, I also am responsible for. And it reminded me of this girl, this young woman who was a student with me when I was studying acupuncture, when I was studying Chinese medicine, who didn't turn in her homework for this one class for like 2 months straight. Because she'd say she came in for the first class, we're given this homework assignment, and the second class she came in and she said, I didn't do the homework assignment, I'm really sorry, I'll make it up. I didn't do it because I thought, well, I'll do it the night before. Like, I always want to do my homework assignments the night before class, so it'll be fresh in my mind. I'll have reviewed all the material, and I'll know if I have any questions. But then last night, my father had a heart attack, and he went to the hospital. I didn't do it. Obviously, the teacher said, all right, no problem, you make it up. Hope your father's okay. And then a week later, she didn't do it the night before class. Like, she was going to wait and do it the night before class. That would be fresh in her mind, and she wouldn't have to review a second time. And she didn't do it. I don't remember. I think one of her relatives was in a car accident. And a week later, she also hadn't done her homework the night before class, which is when she prefers to do homework because she wants it to be fresh in her mind. And I don't remember everything. I remember her sister gave birth. I remember a war broke out. I think there was like some emergency at her family's place of business. I think they owned a garage or something, and there was like an all hands on deck thing. There were like a lot of really serious things happened to her. We all felt bad for her, and each time, like, the reason she hadn't done her homework, obviously you shouldn't write an essay for your class on. I'm sorry, my dad started calling it herbology after Harry Potter came out, and now that's what's stuck in my head. You shouldn't write an essay about, some herb, some medicinal plant when your sister's giving birth or when your dad's having a heart attack. It's very hard to expect someone to get their homework done when they're being actually bombed and running for a bomb shelter. But after 2 months, the teacher said, listen, you're going to sit down and you're going to turn in at least one piece of homework, or I'm just failing you from this class in advance, and you're going to have to do it again next year. And she was crying. She was like, not like crocodile tears. She was seriously hurt. She was like, oh my God, I just told, like, my dad had a heart attack. I had to drive my sister to the hospital. I was bombed. I literally had to run for a bomb shelter. I was sitting in a bomb shelter with all of my relatives, and I didn't bring my textbook. Like, how do you expect me to write an essay that way? How could you be so mean to me when it's not my fault? And he's like, listen, your dad having a heart attack, your sister giving birth, being bombed, like, none of this was your fault. But the fact that you, despite knowing that somehow every Thursday night something awful happens in your life, still decide to leave your homework for the last possible day, that's your fault. If you told me, listen, I decided to do my homework the same day as the class, I'll get home, I'll do my homework, and your dad had a heart attack, so you decided to do it the next day, and your sister gave birth, and you decided to do it the next day, and there was a war, and you decided to do it the next day, and there was a car crash, that would be an excuse. But no matter how awful these problems are, you're setting yourself up to fail when you say, I'm going to do my homework at the last possible minute, and I'm not going to give myself any leeway, despite knowing that I live on planet Earth where things happen that screw up our plans. And ever since then, that stuck with me, and I think it's the same idea that there's a difference between responsibility and control. I can't control necessarily whether or not I'll be happy, unless maybe I take drugs. I can control whether or not I do that. Not a good long-term solution. I don't know if there are drugs that actually make you happy. Maybe they just make you think you're happy. Who knows? But anyway, like, I can't necessarily control I'm happy, whether or not I'm happy, but I can control the circumstances many of the circumstances that will contribute to whether or not I'm able to be happy. So there, that was my thought. That got a little ranty, I think, but that was my thought for Purim, that, you know, we can't control most things, but we can decide whether we're going to do our best under the circumstances, or whether we're going to leave our homework to the very last minute and then open ourselves up to a much higher likelihood of something going wrong. So there you go. There was that thought. Have a happy Shushan Purim, or a happy Wednesday if you're not Jewish. And I will be back tomorrow. And I will see you then. Bye.